Lasker Nation, Jackson, Janet's greetings and welcome to the Daily Dose of Donkey with Ginger. It's your boy, the Viking Donkey, bringing you some Steelers talk after a Week 1 victory. If you listen to the Bug Cap, you already got my take on it, but we got Lasker's, we got Gingy to give you a little more spin on it, a little more eyes on the game, a little more reaction to what we saw. Gents, not the prettiest win, but a win's a win, and your record is what your record is. How are we doing after a big W to start the season?
Gingy in the house. Here we go, Steelers. Big dub. Any dub is a pretty dub. All right. It wasn't, your prototype offensive juggernaut. Really would have liked to see him get in the end zone and kick off the season. Of course, lots to talk about there.
Gingy, for the man who talks about winning ugly, you can't say every win's a pretty win. Come on now.
I don't know, Donkey. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it briefly. Yeah, I saw some pretty things. I saw some pretty ugly things, but there was good to be taken.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
As I said to Gingy, I was only able to watch the fourth quarter as I was traveling down to Uniontown, so most of my impressions are listening to the game, and I just don't know about this team.
Well, let's start with the greatest positive you can have. TJ Watt's that dude. Let's be honest here. The first opening drive from the get-go, we can't stop Atlanta. Nothing's happening. Bam, TJ Watt in the backfield, tackle for loss, drive stalls, held to a field goal. What the heck can you say other than TJ Watt's a monster, Gingy? I mean, he had 2 strip sacks taken away due to penalty. One which was an iffy penalty, but it's because he started early. They're going to throw that flag. And whether it's right or wrong, it should be reviewable, in my opinion, because offsides is black and white. That should be a reviewable penalty. And he clearly didn't look to be offsides, but the early start got the flag, takes away a huge thing. I believe that was the touchdown drive Atlanta had that he lost that strip sack.
It was.
Outside of TJ Watt, Gingy, I'm not sure there's a whole heck of a lot on defense that I can write home about, because we didn't make interceptions because we made good plays. We made interceptions because, let's be honest, dude, Kirk Cousins looked like a dude who hadn't played football in a year and a dude who wasn't able to move. Like, if that's what Atlanta paid for Kirk Cousins, thank God they drafted Michael Penix Jr., huh?
Gingy, can I cut in real quick just to...
Go for it.
So, the actual official went up to TJ in the second half and said that he screwed up on that one, where he called him offsides.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But Gingy, impressed by the defense or disimpressed by what Atlanta brought? And by the defense, I mean the people not named TJ Watt, because clearly you have to be impressed by TJ Watt. But the rest of the defense, impressed by them, or do you think this was more of a shortcoming in specifically Kirk Cousins this week?
I think there's a little bit of both to be said there. All right, TJ Watt is part of the team, definitely disrupted.
He is the team, dude.
Him
and Boswell. Him and Chris Boswell make up 97% of the Pittsburgh Steelers at this point.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but the pass rush was oppressive all day on Kirk Cousins. He didn't have a clean pocket back there. Granted, the mobility might have been limited, but that's what we talk about with the Pittsburgh Steelers. That pass rush causes problems on all types of ends.
Yeah, it does. Montravius Adams getting in there with the sack. It was nice to see him now not being the feature guy out there. Looked a little crisper. I know it is early season. But Laskers, what I really got to get into here, I guess, is, dude, we can't argue. Even when Kirk Cousins had a clean pocket, he was missing receivers by 4 or 5 yards. Like, that dude looked like a guy who hasn't played football in a year. And if you didn't notice, if you watched a lot of Week 1 games, all the quarterbacks who were hurt to end last year looked like garbage. Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, I know I'm missing a big one here and who had a terrible game. Deshaun Watson. All these guys who missed that and then didn't play in the preseason. Laskers, if quarterback plays that important, these teams might have to start considering playing quarterbacks in the preseason again.
Oh, they definitely do, because look at Burrow. I mean, Burrow looked like trash too. I mean,
another injured one I missed. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's the exact same thing. Is injuries hurt, and you gotta play them. Now, the funniest thing about that is I was actually in the Atlanta airport during draft weekend, and there were a lot of Atlanta fans there, and they're like, "Why'd we draft a quarterback in the first round when we just picked up Kirk Cousins?"
After watching 1 week, and now albeit week 1 is preseason football, I'll stay with that.
No.
You got to see exactly
this was pre
why.
that. This was
That's
pre
what I'm
that.
saying, but
Yeah.
going into that, you got to see why in week 1, which is to me is preseason. And maybe Atlanta doesn't look so silly about that, although paying Kirk Cousins and then drafting was still very silly. We can get to that later. But Gingy, there's 3 debuts for Steelers defenders I want to get into. Donta Jackson was behind on a lot of routes, but that actually led to an interception because he was behind on the route and Kirk Cousins missed the route. So good there. Jalen Elliott looked not bad, made the interception when the ball's thrown to him. Both him and Donta Jackson, the interception in the first games of Steelers. That's what you need, those splash plays you love. But we also have the bad. Patrick Queen was out of position. Patrick Queen was missing tackles, and Patrick Queen just had a terrible debut, let's be honest here. But 2 out of 3 being positives, do you look at that as a good thing going forward, or does the middle of the defense still maybe being sus raise concerns for you?
Middle of the defense being sus is a concern. I hope that Patrick Queen begins to adjust here quickly. Really happy that we have positivity from the secondary, though. Again, that pass rush really assisting that secondary and being able to deliver. Yeah, welcome to the new guys.
Heck yeah, Laskers, the end on the defense here. Let's talk about the right side of the Steelers line, where every time the team seems to run the ball there and average 5 yards a carry, and it was no different for the Atlanta Falcons. As a matter of fact, the only play that was stopped in the backside that was a run to the offensive left, the defensive right, was a play where TJ Watt ran it down from the backside. Is this Highsmith-Hayward combo going to really start to hurt the Steelers late in the season when we play good running teams a la our division?
Yes, I definitely think it will, because to be honest, they're both getting old. They just can't get that push that they
young
had.
Up and comer. He's only like 27.
Yeah, so yeah, you're right, but Hayward's getting up there in years.
Yeah. He rated out pretty good on the game, but that's because most of the run misses they gave to Highsmith and Patrick Queen, which, to be fair, if you watched it, was. But Laskers, let's get to the special teams. We finally get a punter who can flip the field, and, of course, he doesn't make it a whole game. Terrible holding penalty, terrible blocking by Miles Killebrew leads to Cameron Johnson being out for the season. Boswell comes in and punts a 40-yarder, makes all his field goals. You know you love to pick the Wizard of Oz as like your superstar X Factor guy, right? Well, let's just say this. Wizard of Oz showed up, showed he could punt. The special teams to you, how did they perform?
I thought the special teams performed excellent. I mean, if it wasn't for the special teams, this would have been a totally different game.
They literally scored every point for us, Gingy. And maybe getting into the off, that's a reason of concern. But with him getting out, we bring in a guy who we should have kept as our punter 2 years ago, Corliss Waitman. He's a guy who's averaged mid-40s a punt, has been a lot more consistent than Shankopotamus. And it's hard for me to say this because you know I loved Presley Harvin when he got drafted. But thank God it's Corliss Waitman coming in and not Presley Harvin for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, special teams was okay. What? Donkey, did we just choose not to participate in the new kickoff? We were kicking touchbacks.
Yeah, for some reason, by the way, if you look, the average field position when the ball was kicked in play was something like the 24-yard line. We're willing to give up 6 free yards to put it at the 30. I think that shows the fact that Danny Smith knows he doesn't know how to scheme a special teams play and will willingly give up 6 yards every time because he's so nervous of his ability to keep them contained. Or, is this Mike Tomlin lives in his sphere and would much rather take the consistent 30 than the chance of giving up to the 40? I personally don't know, but since it was every time, you have to think that's Mike Tomlin, right?
I find that concerning.
We'll get to my biggest concern here in a second. But, Gingy, I'd be remiss if I didn't say the best receiver performance we had that wasn't George Pickens was Scotty Miller, and it's not because he's a wide receiver. It's because he made a hell of a play as a gunner on a punt, and the dude had to come in and be our holder for Boswell's last field goal. Special shout out to Scotty Miller in his first game as a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Here. Those are the type of things that don't show up on the stat sheet, but definitely matter at the end of the game.
That's true. But yeah, we'll talk about offense, but I want to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers being the same damn team we've seen for frickin' 4 seasons now. No passes over the middle of the field. A defense that's playing very vanilla and relying on TJ Watt. And the reason I say this is we're in plus territory at the 40-yard line on 3rd and 6, and we run a goddamn draw play to set up a field goal. Jimmy, I was promised things will be different this year. We're 1 game in. Is anything different?
Doesn't look too different to me, to be honest. Very conservative football. Nothing wrong with that in its due time and place, right? But across the course of, an entire season, only conservative football that can get you jammed up.
We've seen this before, Laskers, where the Steelers go, yeah, but look, it's working. It wins games. But every time we play a Houston Texans, a San Francisco 49ers, a Kansas City Chiefs, a Buffalo Bills, we get blown the freak out of the water. Why the heck are we not showing to be more aggressive against bad teams? Because if you don't practice it against the lower teams, you're not going to be able to perform it against the good teams. Why has this become the acceptable norm in Steeler Nation?
Well, Donkey, I got your answer here. We got 3 more years of this, at least. If they keep signing Tomlin, this is what our normal is going to be. Because I really do believe that Tomlin is the problem.
I hear you on that. I really don't know how to judge this game offensively, Gingy. I talked about it with my son on the Bug Cap. Y'all should listen if you haven't. He did a really good job. We talked about some fun stuff. And he also gives us predictions for this week. I don't know what to say
He'll probably do better than me and Gingy.
Yeah, we'll get into that. By the way, we could do it now since last one bring it up. No, we'll do it before the picks. Never mind. This offense, though, running game was average at best. I mean, Najee ran harder than I've seen him run recently, which was nice, but the offensive line really didn't open up very many holes. Spencer Anderson showed he was a backup getting beat multiple times. I mean, Justin Fields' legs saved the day on more than one occasion. We saw him throw a couple pretty deep balls, one which got called back for pass interference by Pickens. Need to keep those arms in, buddy. Create the separation with your elbow. And one that was a huge completion, but we didn't see chances taken outside of like the final 2 minutes of the half. This felt like a Kenny Pickett run offense with a more athletic quarterback, which might work out. But at the end of the day, you need to put up points. And Justin Fields was, to me, it looked like the Steelers told him not to take chances. The running game was average at best. And I'm going to be honest, if Jaylen Warren is suiting up for the Pittsburgh Steelers, there is no world where Jaylen Warren should be getting less touches than Cordarrelle Patterson, okay? Our tight ends looked below average. Our offensive line looked average. Dan Moore Jr. was the best offensive lineman we had. Are you kidding me, Gingy? There's a couple other things, but let's run with that. Let's just run with the running game, what you saw, the conservative nature. So focus mostly the backs and offensive line. I mean, was it a little too conservative?
Absolutely. Dislike Donkey. It looked like a lot of traditional football. I didn't see many exotic run schemes.
No.
Pretty basic stuff. Really,
there's a pretty exotic reverse that went for like negative 12 yards.
It was negative 10.
Thanks.
Given the fact of leaning into Justin Fields' strong suit, the running, I would have expected to see more misdirection, more. I don't know. Maybe we'll see it this week. More option, more. Just trying to play off the fact that he's a viable runner in the backfield. But I just still saw a lot of single back, line up behind the tight end, guard, tackle, and take it in one direction or the other. And that, I don't know. I expected a little more from the Arthur Smith vaunted run game package.
Right. And Justin Fields is a guy who traditionally didn't play that much under center, forcing him to go under center. And Laskers, maybe this is the most telling line of Arthur Smith to me. And Mike Tomlin, by the way, because I'm not going to let it be just Arthur Smith taking the blame for this. When they go into the press conference and they're prepping all week knowing Justin Fields is going to play, and they say, we don't have to switch our game plan up because we feel Justin Fields and Russell Wilson are very similar quarterbacks. What world are they smoking? That's like saying Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow are similar quarterbacks in my vision, Laskers. Are these dudes really that delusional that they think they can just fit any circle, triangle, square, pegged quarterback into their diamond hole? Like, what the heck is going on with the brain trust that runs this team?
Oh, I definitely agree with that delusional. 10 years ago, yeah, Russell is very similar to Justin Fields, but not today. And
Russell Wilson could never run like Justin Fields. Just put that
you're right, but he could run. But,
yes.
But my point is, I personally, to touch on your point of Jaylen Warren should not have less carries than Cordell Patterson. Yeah, I could give Justin Fields a few more carries because, okay, you have a pass play that breaks down, you're going to run it. He should be at most 2 less than Justin Fields, not 10 less.
Ideal scenario here for me is if Justin Fields is a starting quarterback, is Justin Fields gets 8 designed runs a game, right? I'm not going to say how many rushing attempts he has because if he breaks out, that's what it is. There should be 8 designed runs for Russell Wilson. There should be about 12 runs for Jaylen Warren and about 15 to 20 for Najee, depending on the way the score was going. But Gingy,
because you're saying he's the number one.
Right. Maybe more concerning for me is Najee, when he ran north and south again, was very effective. But did you notice every time Najee tried to cut outside the tackles, he lost yards? Like all 5 carries outside the tackle, he lost yards. Why the hell is 4 years into his career, Najee Harris still thinking he's able to bounce the ball to the outside?
I really wish he wouldn't. That's all I have to say. I don't know. I can't explain that. I haven't been able to explain that since day one.
By the way,
really the way that he runs.
I'm still super excited. You get the win. The wins are what matters. I'm happy about that. I'm disappointed that this team looks like they're still stuck in that same box they've been forever. But let's be honest, TJ Watt, Chris Boswell, stay healthy. This team's probably going to be in playoff contention. You can't be too upset about that. But, guys, I want to give you your chance right here for your closing thoughts on the 18-10 win at Atlanta, going on the road, starting week 1 with a win. Laskers, let's start it with you.
I mean, I'm happy we got the win, but the one thing I'm going to bring up is, okay, yes, Boswell, fucking excellent, but you cannot win games against good teams by kicking field goals.
Did we have any drives inside the 20 that, well, I think it was 1 of 2. 2 red zone drives, 1 we kicked a field goal, 1 we turned it over on downs, which, by the way, that 4th down play, whiff. But Gingy, closing thoughts.
Yeah, my closing thoughts about that game, Donkey. Penalties killed the Steelers. Lots of big splash plays turned around with penalties. Got to eliminate the unforced errors. And overall need to see some more consistency on offense. Didn't see a single ball thrown over the middle.
That was by design, the middle of the field is scary, okay? That's where turnovers happen. We intentionally avoided that. That's what your offensive coordinator says. That's what we've done for 4 damn years.
So let me cut in. Boswell had 1 25-yard field goal. That was his last one. So that would be the only one where we were in inside the 20 unless we had some penalties.
We were 1 for 2 on red zone drives because we had that terrible 4th down one. But Gingy, that's how we design it. And at this point, should the Steeler Nation believe that anything's going to be different this year, or should we just buckle up our chin strap to be the 7 seed and get our butts kicked in round 1?
I don't know. Better get the chin straps ready based on this, but let's hope not, Donkey.
Let's hope TJ Watt has one of those TJ Watt games in the playoffs and we win it 12-9. Okay? We can hope that TJ Watt does other world stuff because at this point, I feel, and we had a chance to really make change this year, and we decided to take Arthur Smith. And I heard the story about how we were going to do this huge advanced search for an offensive coordinator. But it sounds like, from my understanding, is the day Arthur Smith got fired, Mike Tomlin called him and said, your first call needs to be me, which means we were never doing a search. We were going to always take this type of guy. And it really irks me, Laskers, because TJ Watt is otherworld, and I just feel like we're wasting TJ Watt.
Oh, we're wasting his prime years for sure. And like I said, Tomlin's a problem. I mean, it's been the same for years and years and years. Tomlin hires the OCs that he wants, and we get the same results.
True that. Let's go ahead. Let's flip the page. We got some fun stuff to talk about. Pittsburgh at Denver, a team we actually have a losing record against, 13-20-1 all time. At home, we're 8-7, but this is on the road. The Steelers are 5-13-1 against the Denver Broncos at Mile High Stadium. A little bit different thing there. Let's talk things on the road that you can find out happen and you never knew about. Ryan Clark almost dying on the field because of sickle cell anemia is the game that always sticks in my head for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And thank goodness that all worked out well for him and he ended up surviving. But that's one that sticks out in my head. The biggest win in this rivalry, not really rivalry, the series, it was Pittsburgh by 35, 42-7 in 1979. Denver won by 27 back in 1989, 34-7. The longest streak, both teams had a 3-game winner. Pittsburgh 78-79 and Denver from 70-73. The current streak is the Steelers won the last two, 2020 to the current game right now. The last meeting was a 27-19 win by the Steelers in 2021, October 10th. This is a matchup that, when you look back at the scores, there's like 3 games where either team scored 40 points against each other. It feels like a current Steelers series, right? Like if you look at a lot of these last few games, 19-16, 17-13, there's just all sorts of Steelers scores sprinkled in here. But the first thing I want to talk about is obviously rookie quarterback for Denver. But do you think the record, when you look at us, 8-7 against them at home, and then so bad on the road, 5-13, is the Mile High City playing in the altitude gonna be the biggest component working against the Pittsburgh Steelers this week?
I definitely think it is.
Might be working for him if we continue to kick field goals. Boswell will be able to hit him from 70 out there.
Fair. Did you see, I don't know what kicker it was. I don't know if it was NFL or college. I think it was an NFL game. It was an NFL game. It was Dallas, I think. Their kicker drills a 64-yarder, but they had a frickin' delay a game. Do you guys see that? Like, oh.
No.
Dude. And then they were going to run him out there for like a 69-yarder, but they decided
he said no.
Like the coach afterwards, like, oh, we'll take the timeout now and then bring out the punting unit rather than kicking the field goal. But this is, you know what? I'm going to give you my first thoughts on this game against Denver. Then I'll let you guys break it down how you feel, and then we'll get into cash or trash statements. But when you look at this Denver Broncos team, I said before, I think this was before the draft, that Bo Nix was the perfect fit for Sean Payton's system. I still feel that way. Bo Nix had real struggles in his first game, but it's going to be a struggle for Denver this year. I mean, this is a team that their highest paid player by about $60 million is currently on the Pittsburgh Steelers and Russell Wilson. This is a roster, when you look at it at Denver, that doesn't have a whole lot of starting quality guys on offense or on defense. I mean, Javonte Williams is probably a number 2 back, like the secondary back in the system. He's a good one. He's NFL caliber. Cortland Sutton is a number 2 wide receiver. But then they have number 3 guys like Reynolds and Mims who really don't do anything. I mean, Dolchik is a tight end. And you look at the offensive line, I mean, Powers is a pretty good player. Quinn Marins, who the Steelers should have drafted 3 years ago, is a good right guard. McGlinchey struggled against TJ Watt the last time they played. Oh, no. Yeah, that's right. And Garrett Bowles is a pretty good left tackle out there. So, I mean, their offensive line's okay, but outside of that on offense, they really struggle. Defensively, you look at this team, Is it Patrick Surtain? Is about the only Patrick Surtain the second is about the only one who I really know out there as a good player. I mean, I know who PJ Locke is because he played at Texas. You look at the rest of this team, though. There's not a whole lot of names I know. Zach Allen, DJ Jones, Franklin Myers starting on the defensive line. They traded really the only one I knew to Miami last year. And then you got in the linebackers, Browning, Singleton, Barton, Cooper. This is the type of game, when you look at it on paper, the Pittsburgh Steelers should have an advantage everywhere, even with our lesser roster than most, because Denver's roster is lesser than ours. And that's what scares me, is a lesser roster on the road. Is this a trap already for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
These games traditionally are traps for Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know. I'd like to think that we have something to do with young quarterbacks. There are times where that's shown against me, but in general, let's hope that we have one of those weeks coming up this week. TJ Watt, if TJ Watt is getting after Bo Nix like he's getting after Kirk Cousins, it's gonna be a good Steeler day.
That's fair. Laskers, how are you feeling about this game going? What are you really looking for?
Well, you forgot about Levi Wallace, the former Steeler, but anyhow.
Okay,
I just had to bring that. I had to bring that one up. I mean, he's number 2 on the depth chart, but I had to bring it up.
Our number 3 receiver might have a hell of a day if he's the dude playing in the slot.
The Steelers typically play down to their opponents, so this could be a uphill battle. That's how I feel about it.
I don't know what to think about this one. One thing I forgot to talk about when we talked about the Steelers last game, and I think that might be the point we want to make going into this game, is our number 2 receiver, our number 3 receiver, and our number 1 tight end last week against Atlanta all sucked at blocking. There was one play, I think it was a screen pass, and if you watch it, both Calvin Austin III and Van Jefferson just get run over, and the guy who caught the screen has 2 defenders between him and the line of scrimmage because both of our blocking wide receivers got decked. Pat Freiermuth had, 4 catches for 27 yards, did nothing blocking. Van Jefferson had 1 catch for no yards or 1 catch for 1 yard, did nothing blocking. Calvin Austin III had no stats and did nothing on the blocking side. I really think the weakness of this Pittsburgh Steelers team might lead to this game against Denver being a serious problem, because we have guys who are playing a majority of the snaps, Gingy, who 1 can't block and 2 can't seem to be valuable receivers in the passing game. Do you think this could be a huge area that the Broncos can exploit?
Yeah, Van Jefferson didn't show me really anything good last week. Absolutely, donkey. Very disappointed in that show up. But
Patrick Surtain, who's very capable, if he can shut down, let's say, George Pickens, can the Steelers throw the ball if George Pickens is being shut down?
I think they have an extremely difficult time if George Pickens is shut down.
So let's get to the elephant in the room, Laskers. Is it Justin Fields or is it Russell Wilson getting his revenge?
I think it's Mike Tomlin getting his revenge.
That didn't answer my quarterback question. Who's starting?
Oh, it's going to be Justin Fields for sure.
I hope so. Gingy, I really hope so. I will say this. I saw some glimmers from Justin Fields in that game. Those deep passes, when he was allowed to throw them, were on the frickin' money. And let's be honest, that dude is athletic and fast.
Absolutely. I alluded to it earlier. I'd love to see those strengths be more leaned into. Yes, we didn't have any balls over the middle. Maybe that's not his strength. That's what he's comfortable with, right? Would love to see it, but let's see more of what he can do, to be honest. He threw a couple nice deep balls, okay? There were some accuracy issues initially with the short to mid pass, right? Where we'd love to see him put it on like a front shoulder rather than throw it behind the guy.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, there were some things to be liked about Justin Fields. Again, you could tell very conservative. I think you alluded to it earlier, intentionally conservative. Like, don't mess it up, kid.
Do you think Justin Fields gets the start this week? And more importantly, do you think it matters if it's Justin Fields or Russell Wilson?
I feel like they're both got the same orders, don't they?
Well, yes, the same marching orders every quarterback that Ben Roethlisberger has had, and you could argue Ben Roethlisberger had those orders his last 2 years.
Yeah, don't mess it up. Don't mess it up.
Let TJ win the game. Okay, the goal. Let TJ win the game. And not a bad plan, I won't say, but a little bit crazy in there. Let's get into cash or trash. Let's start on the offensive side. Let's start with Laskers this week. Laskers, cash or trash, the Steelers finally score their first offensive touchdown of the year.
I'm going to cash that one in. I don't know why, but I'm going to.
Yes.
Fair enough. Number 2 here. Gingy, a wide receiver or tight end for the Pittsburgh Steelers not named George Pickens, breaks 50 yards receiving. Notice I left out running backs because I really think Jaylen Warren's the likely option, so he doesn't get a play in this.
Dang, you stole my thunder. 50 yards from another wide receiver other than Pickens or tight end?
Mm-hmm.
Trash.
Oh, no faith in the move here from Gingy there this week.
Trash.
Let's go to number 3. Laskers, the Steelers running backs will account for more than 100 yards rushing.
So that does not include Fields, assuming that he is the starter.
Just running backs.
I'm going to trash that one.
Ooh. Okay. Let's go. Number 4 on the offensive side. Gingy, the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line. Who knows who's going to start? It sounds like Troy Fontana is going to start at right tackle. Dan Moore practice again. He was actually our best lineman, and that still hurts me to say last week. Broderick Jones seems to be the guy getting benched here. But moving pieces again. Spencer Anderson starting his second game. Zach Frazier starting his second game. They will hold that really weak Denver front 7 to less than 2 sacks. Let's say 2 or less sacks.
2 or less sacks. Trash.
Man,
Justin Fields does a lot of dancing
right now.
Justin Fields does a lot of dancing back there. It's not necessarily, the little fall over. It's not going to be boom, sack through the middle, ball flying through the air. It's going to be one of those ones where Justin Fields just kind of falls down.
I like that. Boom through the middle. That's how we're going to start it every time. By the way, that's what Montravis Adams did last week to Kirk Cousins was
boom through the middle.
Laskers, let's end the offensive one with George Pickens will have over 100 yards receiving this week. Cash or trash?
Trash.
Boy, our offensive outlook is very bleak right now, so fair enough.
6 field goals last week, Donkey, really puts a damper on things,
I will give my closing statement on the offense here after I give you 2 the chance, and you'll get a cash or trash that, obviously. But Laskers, closing thoughts on the offense against the Broncos.
I think it's going to be an uphill battle. That's really what I think. If we make 300 yards, I'm going to be surprised.
Gingy, your take to go.
Would really like to see more established on the run, something on the run game here throughout the Steelers campaign this week. Really would like to see, what are we at again? Najee at 3.5. What was that last week? 3.4, 3.5.
20 for like 70. Yeah, it's like mid threes. Yeah,
Give me a second, Gingy, and I'll tell you.
It ain't good enough. Whatever it is, it ain't good enough. I'd like to see him be able to pop one.
I know you can tell. I can tell you, Fields had 4.1.
That really ain't good enough either, in my opinion. Yeah, it's not bad, but given the fact that that's his strength, it ain't good enough.
Given the fact that he
was
got
3.5
about the offense.
He got stuck
that's
on 2
that's definitely not good enough.
Yeah, it was 20 for 70,
near.
Right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly
nowhere near good enough.
So my take on the offense is going to be real simple. I think they're more explosive if Justin Fields plays because of his ability to run, but I think they're going to run the same offense. They've already proved that no matter who the quarterback is, because why the hell cater to the pieces you have? Just run the offense that you want to run, whether or not you have the pieces for it, is the way the Steelers do things. So I think you're going to see a very balled up game, but I think you're going to see two guys have an absolute breakout in the game. It's not going to lead to an offense explosion like I thought could happen against Atlanta. I think the altitude is going to make them a little more tired. I think it's going to affect things a little bit. I think the Steelers are going to try to air out the ball and just let the rookie quarterback lose it. So I'm really thinking George Pickens and Jaylen Warren both break 100 scrimmage yards, and both of them account for 80% of the Steelers' offensive yards. I think you see them score their first touchdown. I think you see them score below 20 points as a team. You guys can go ahead or cash or trash my take right there.
And no turnovers. To you first.
Oh, man, that was a lot to take in. Below 20 as a team.
Yep. Offense is all Pickens and Warren, and they don't turn it over.
So that's another under 300-yard offensive performance, I assume, as well.
It depends on how much Warren. I'm not putting a yardage on it. I don't really care what the yardage is. I'm just looking at points.
Under 20. I'd sure like to see him get over 20 this week. At least 220, 2 touchdowns, and 2 field goals.
That'd be nice. That would put us at 20.
That's what I'm looking for this week, Donkey.
Fair enough. Blaskers, you want to cash or trash that?
You said under 20?
Yep.
I'm going to cash that one in.
All right. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. We got Gingy to start off this week. Last week, Kirk Cousins looked absolutely terrible. We got a rookie this week. The Steelers will once again hold opponent, in this case the Denver Broncos of Bo Nix, under 200 yards passing. Cash or trash?
Cash.
Fair enough. Laskers, we saw some sacks coming from odd spots like Montravius Adams, so very good for him. Pressure is going to be the focal point. Denver's strength is their offensive line. That's about the one spot they're strong. Javonte Adams out there doing good. But the Pittsburgh Steelers will have more than 3 sacks against the Denver Broncos.
I'm going to cash that one in, actually.
Fair enough. Let's go back to Gingy. Javonte Williams is the focal point of this Broncos offense. The Pittsburgh Steelers will hold him under 70 rushing yards this week.
Cash that in.
Good enough. Laskers, let's get to the secondary. Let's get to a guy who really hasn't done it in a while. Minkah Fitzpatrick will get an interception this week. Cash or trash?
I'm going to cash that one in.
Let's go. Hey, Gingy, let's end it with you. The middle linebacking trio has really seen some struggles from Patrick Queen and really just no show up. Did anyone ever hear Landon Roberts' name last week? Because I don't remember it. But maybe the bright spot was Peyton Wilson. Peyton Wilson will get more than 40% of the defensive snaps at middle linebacker this week, and they will be well-deserved. Cash or trash?
Cash that up for me. Let's go. He had a great game last week.
He certainly did. We talked about the Broncos offense, where their strength is, where their weakness is. Let's give the closing thoughts start to Gingy on what we expect when the Steelers are on defense.
More pressure of the quarterback. Let's hope to see a better performance from Patrick Queen this week. More lockdown on the middle. And then that pressure on the quarterback leading to some secondary activity. That's the recipe for success on the defensive side of the ball for the Steelers this year is what I'm thinking, Donkey.
We need that 5th highest paid middle linebacker in football to start playing like it. Laskers, your closing thoughts while we're on defense.
Oh, I really think that TJ is going to have 2 sacks this week. That's my closing thoughts.
Fair enough. I'll let you guys cash or trash my closing thoughts here, and I'm going to throw in a special teams part to my defensive talk. Defensively, I think the Steelers really stifle Bo Nix. I think the running game is a little bit of a problem, and I think one time someone slips behind Donta Jackson for a big gain. I don't know who it's going to be, but I think it's going to happen at least one time. I feel outside of that, I feel the Steelers get in there, they get some sacks. TJ Watt does TJ Watt things. I think this is a game where Baby Herbig, because their left tackle, Bowles, tends to struggle with speed rushers. I feel Baby Herbig comes in, has a big spot. I feel Keanu Benton is just all day up the middle, and when he spells in, Montravius Adams is as well. So I'm looking for a big play, at least 3 turnovers caused by the defense, holding the Broncos under 20 points. But more importantly, I expect, after one of the worst games I've seen him have, I expect something special out of Miles Killebrew this week. Cash or trash, guys, on my take on the defense / special teams shout out there. Gingy, you can go first.
Cash it in. I can
Laskers.
agree with that.
I'm going to trash that one.
No, fair enough. All right, now it's time for us to get to some picks. This will be a good spot for you guys to give closing thoughts when we get to the Steelers one. So we added 2 new people to our picks this week. You heard Bugboo pick his. JD, since he's going to help me with the power rankings at about week 7 when we start that, he's going to add his too. By the way, they both went 4-0 and picking the AFC North last week, which is better than what we can say. Gingy leading us at 2-2. I come in at 1-3, but at least I got the Steelers game right. And Laskers, Laskers, there's a 0 in the front and win column. That can't happen. Although I guess that you said is your goal, so you're inversely picking now. Is that correct?
Yep, that's my goal.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you JD's picks first. He likes Jacksonville over Cleveland. He likes Vegas over Baltimore. He likes the Bengals over the Chiefs, which apparently my kids just like to pick the same picks as each other. And, of course, he likes the Steelers over the Broncos. So let's start. Gingy, we have Cleveland going to Jacksonville. Who'd you like in that one?
Give me Jacksonville. They blew it at the end of last week. They're going to be fired up.
Fair enough. Laskers, who'd you like?
Give me Jacksonville on that one, too.
I'm going to say give me Cleveland on this one because I understand that Jacksonville was in a close game and lost it. But, man, when a team gets embarrassed, they tend to show up the next week. I think that will be what happens here. Next, we have Vegas coming to play Baltimore. I'm going to tell you right now, to me, from week 1, the 2 most impressive teams played in the same game, and that was both Baltimore and Kansas City. Special almost there for San Francisco with having no McCaffrey and doing what they did. But those are the 3 teams I was looking at, and then, of course, this Thursday night, fake football, Buffalo did what they did. But Vegas to Baltimore, both 0-1 teams. Who gets their first win? Laskers?
Ravens.
Gingy?
Give me the Ravens.
Yeah, I'm going to triple down on that. Also give me Baltimore. Then we have a kind of fun one. Joe Burrow, a lot of people wondering if his wrist is still hurt. That Bengals team that looked really bad, and by the way, when their game was like 3 points the whole time, how'd you only run the ball 11 times or whatever they did? Weird. Joe Mixon almost had more yards in his debut for Houston than the whole Bengals offense. Do the Bengals get it together going to Kansas City, Gingy?
Nope. Give me the Chiefs.
Laskers?
Dang it, I'm going to echo Gingy on this one, too. Definitely give me the Chiefs, because Burrow is usually week 3 when he finally shows up because he didn't play preseason.
Fair enough. I also like the Chiefs, but that's just because the Chiefs now have an offensive wide receiver who is fast and can catch the football. That's kind of scary if Xavier Worthy can stay healthy. Now the money game. The Steelers, the Broncos. This is where I want your breakdown. This is where I want your score. This is where I want your X factor. Gingy! All 3. Look at the trifecta. Send it to me.
Give me 24-18 Pittsburgh Steelers. X factor being Najee Harris. I'd like to see him have a day versus the Broncos on that run defense.
Laskers.
Give me the Steelers 16-10. X factor is TJ Watt with 2 sacks and 1 interception.
If anyone's curious, both Laskers and Gingy in the preseason picked the Steelers to win this. If you're curious, the Madden simulation for the season has the Steelers losing this one 31-28. That's a double offensive explosion going on. We'll have to see how well Madden does, but right now Madden's 1-0 and picking the Steelers season, so we'll give them credit there.
But what about the score?
Well, they said 31-14, so they're a little off on the score, kind of close on the Falcons score. So this is my time to say I picked the Broncos to beat us in the preseason. I'm just going to stick with my preseason picks. I think the Broncos beat the Steelers. Let's call it 15-13. But the Steelers do get an offensive touchdown, so there's that going on. I think the X factor is going to be... I have to say the X factor is going to be the Steelers secondary, and I think it's just that the secondary allows a big play to happen late in the game. The Steelers were playing not to lose. They give up that late game touchdown, and there's just no magic in the offense to go down and get that game-winning field goal. It comes up just a little bit short on a 4th down. Some silly screen pass play on a 4th and 2 that gets a 1.5 yards. I don't know why, but that's where I feel it's going to be. So, before we can send it out, there's one last segment. It's time for a shout-out, and we're going to Gingy, because real season happened, and it was a Steelers win, so he's got to be hyped, happy, and wearing the black and gold glasses, right?
Absolutely. Shout out to Donta Jackson, Sean Elliott for interceptions in their Steelers regular season debut. Let's go. Let's see more of that coming up throughout the season. Good start, Donkey. Good start.
For sure. 1-0 feels so good. Laskers, I'm going to let you go to a shout out, and I have a feeling you're going to take mine, so I have another one already in mind, but send it.
So you know I'm taking Boswell.
Yep.
I mean, come on. Six field goals and a freaking amazing punt for a kicker. Boswell, you're the man.
Yeah, there's no doubt that was happening. So my shout out has to go to the other dude who's a part of this special teams fiasco. That's Scotty Miller. You know what? I know catching a snap and putting it down doesn't seem like a big thing. But when you don't have someone who does it and practices it, to be that guy who has to go in there and then also make a couple other teams on plays on special teams, maybe this dude deserves some snaps on offense because he seems to be able to do everything we put him in the position to do and do it successfully. Let's give him some snaps on offense. Scotty Miller, for sure, has to be my shout out for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I guess that means there's only one thing left to do. Let you know I'm the Viking Donkey. That's Viking_Donkey at Twitch or Twitter. Your daily dose of Donkey of Gingers, where you get all this fun content. If you as a community member want to join in on the picks, feel free. We pick the AFC North. If my kids outpick us, man, I'm never going to hear the end of it. So, Donk Nation staff, let's step it up. Let's get these picks right, and let's nail them this week. Oh, boy. What else should we tell them? You know what? Nothing else. Laskers, go.
I'm the Laskers everywhere. I will be out next week, so is this going to be the Gingy and the Donkey show next week? Gingy, to you.
Mutant Gingy in the house. We hanging out. We talking football. It is the best time of the year. Steelers are winning, baby. Let's head for 2-0. Wave them if you got them. Here we go, Steelers.